Welcome to R&R Livin' Life. In this episode, Rick and I leave this very unique part of Queensland and make our way further east along the Gulf Development Road and then the Kennedy Highway for about 280 kilometres through the towns of Mount Garnet, Innot Hot Springs, Ravenhoe and Atherton to Mareeba, transitioning from savanna to the highland region, with its rich volcanic soils that make the tablelands an extremely fertile plateau. Today was set to be a travelling day, although at the end of a travelling day, if there is still daylight left, there is always something to go and check out. Not far from the junction of the Gulf Development Road and the Kennedy Highway, we passed through the 40-mile Scrub National Park with two major vegetation types. Within the semi-evergreen vine thicket, white bean trees, various fig trees and distinctive bottle trees, burdekin plums and white cedar trees can be found, while in the more eucalypt woodlands, cypress pines, paperbarks, ironbarks and lemon-scented gum trees dominate the park's woodland. Not far from the 40-mile scrub, we passed the Welcome to Atherton Tableland sign. The Tablelands is a highland plateau region of far north Queensland, known for its lush rainforests, volcanic lakes and diverse wildlife, featuring fertile volcanic soils and a variety of ecosystems, including dense rainforests and open eucalypt woodlands. Rick and I had driven this road from Georgetown to Cairns on a number of long weekends away from the station well over 40 years ago, but it still fascinated me. The rich green pastures covering the rolling hills, embraced by the lush greenery of the forests, while deep in the gullies small pockets of rainforest cling to the land. The lush green countryside, so vastly different from the dusty browns of the savanna country, is hard on the eyes. We were travelling through stunning country, as the road followed the lay of the land, with some long straight sections followed by steeper climbs as we wove our way through undulating hills and across creeks and waterways with narrow one-lane bridges and sweeping bends. Being a major freight route, thankfully we did not encounter any heavy vehicles or road trains. We stopped in Mount Garnet, a historic mining town that has a long history of boom and bust, to stretch our legs. On the southwestern edge of the Atherton Tablelands, where mining isn't the only industry, but some of the best cattle-producing properties are in the district. Crops of mangoes, corn and other crops are grown on the nearby Herbert River. With the discovery of copper and tin in 1882, the area boomed, becoming a major mining centre, with a rail line reaching it in 1902. Mining activity in Mount Garnet has significantly reduced, with the main copper, zinc, lead, silver mine and its associated processing plants having been placed into liquidation and care and maintenance, and the site is currently being managed as an abandoned mine. The town now acts as a regional hub for small-scale niche mining and cattle grazing, with a population of around 500. We passed through Innot Hot Springs, also known as Nettle Creek Hot Springs, that was established around 3 hot mineral springs in Nettle Creek. The hot springs were explored by Europeans in the early 1870s when John Atherton was exploring the area for grazing opportunities. However, it seems the springs were ignored until 1885, when Charles Garbett, the owner of Woodley Station, rediscovered them and learned from the local Aboriginal people that the springs had healing powers. It is this belief in the springs having healing powers that led to their commercial development in the late 1890s. From there we continued on to Ravenshoe, the highest town in Queensland, with Queensland's highest pub, the Ravenshoe Hotel, formerly the Tully Falls Hotel until 2014, and the highest railway station. The site of the present-day Ravenshoe was first settled by pastoralists prior to 1881, but when stands of red cedar trees were found at nearby Cedar Creek, the mining entrepreneur John Moffat purchased the pastoral properties in 1897, and a village called Cedar Creek was established. By 1910, Cedar Creek had been renamed Ravenshoe. Traditionally, the main industry in Ravenshoe was timber, but since 1987, when the government made 900,000 hectares of surrounding rainforest World Heritage listed, the main industries have been tourism, beef and dairy farming. Just outside of Ravenshoe is Queensland's first utility-scale wind farm, Windy Hill Wind Farm, featuring 20 turbines on private dairy farmland, powering roughly 3,500 homes. The newer Caven Green Power Hub has 28 turbines, significantly boosting local capacity, that began operating to contribute to the Northern Queensland Renewable Energy Zone. Around 15 kilometres southwest of Ravenshoe is the proposed controversial large-scale Columban wind farm, largely in a forested area that has since been revised down to its original scale following environmental concerns regarding its proximity to World Heritage areas. The high elevation and windy conditions of the Atherton Tablelands highlights the region's suitability for wind energy. Windy Hill Wind Farm, located near the Kennedy Highway, is an ideal landmark visible in the area and has a tourist spot to view these massive wind turbines. What stunning scenery we were travelling through! This high altitude landscape of rolling green hills, lush pastures, remnant rainforest pockets and agricultural farmland had every shade of green you could imagine. The often breezy, elevated country transitioned through volcanic tableland terrain, waterfalls and dairy country towards Atherton. The Atherton Basalt Province covers an area of 2,500 square kilometres, containing over 65 identified eruptive centres, including low silica molten rock flows, shield volcanoes, and scotia cones that are small, steep-sided, cone-shaped volcanoes, like the Seven Sisters, that were formed by intermittent explosive and profuse activity, with the steady flow of low viscosity magma onto the Earth's surface, filling the underlying basement rocks, creating the fertile agricultural land of the tablelands. This volcanic region was active from 7.1 million years ago into the early Holocene period of around 9,000 years ago. Being a dairy farmer's daughter, I am always interested in seeing the dairy farms wherever we travel, and on the Atherton Tablelands there are numerous farms, though centred around Malanda, home to a long-standing dairy factory and miller, where many farms are also located, with many farms operating in the fertile, hilly areas. Historically, the region was known for the longest milk run to Darwin, which I can attest to, as when the boys were young we would collect a crate of milk each week from the Barclay homestead on the delivery route to Darwin, when we lived on the Barclay Tablelands. Here on the Tablelands, dairy farming is more than just milking cows, but also about the pasture and having a biodiverse farm that allows wallabies, cassowaries, platypus and a diverse population of birds to call it home. Most dairy farms in Queensland primarily utilise Holstein Friesians, known to produce high milk volume, Jerseys that are smaller, heat-tolerant cows that produce higher butterfat, protein milk, ideal for hot climates, and crossbred cows such as Holstein Jerseys or Illawarra crosses, known to balance milk yield and adaptability to manage heat tolerance in the subtropical conditions. The low clouds that shrouded the hills was fascinating. We had encountered a couple of showers this morning, though not worrisome. It did make for a fresh-looking countryside. The light misty rain seemed to be passing through, as on occasions we were treated to bright sunshine, before the clouds once again closed in. The light drizzle earlier on had turned the fields into a glistening green carpet, giving the grasses a light sheen of moisture. It made the journey this morning very enjoyable. The moisture gave off an earthy, pleasant smell, taking me back to walking in puddles after rain. In the pockets of rainforest, the drizzles seemed to have made the atmosphere within crisp and alive. As we neared Atherton, named after John Atherton, a prominent pioneer pastoralist, tin prospector and explorer who settled in Emerald End area near modern-day Mareeba in 1875, we decided not to stop but continue on. The town site of Atherton, formerly known as Prior's Pocket or Prior's Creek, was officially laid out and named after him in 1885. Though first settled in the 1870s, the region had by 1890 been the scene of many mining ventures. As the ores were depleted, the workers turned to agricultural pursuits. Atherton is a lush, high-altitude regional town in far north Queensland, renowned for its rich agricultural land, diverse wildlife and volcanic crater lakes. Because of its rich basalt soils and high rainfall climate, the region supports a significant dairy industry, often rotating with cropping land. The area is also known as the Food Bowl of far north Queensland, growing a truly amazing range of crops including avocados, mangoes, bananas, macadamia nuts, coffee, potatoes, peanuts, maize or corn, sugarcane and passion fruit, along with tropical fruits like lychees, papaya and citrus. We passed through the communities of Tolga, Rocky Creek and Walkerman before reaching Mareeba. Just before Mareeba, we passed the airport. I was surprised to see a huge number of aircraft parked, but find out that it is currently home to several flight training operators, aircraft maintenance businesses, agricultural aviation operators, and recreational aviators. The town sits at the confluence of the Barron River, Granite Creek and Emerald Creek. Mareeba has a history going back to the gold mining days. The area was first settled by Europeans in 1877 by John Atherton, who arrived with cattle at Emerald End, which is just north of the town today. Mareeba quickly became a busy coach stop for Cobb and Co. on the road from Port Douglas to Herberton. When the railway line arrived in 1893, Mareeba grew into a busy town. From 1942 to 1945, during World War II, up to 10,000 Australian and US service personnel used Mareeba Airfield as a staging post for battles in New Guinea and the Southwest Pacific Theatre. After setting up Gidget at Kirribilli Park Rodeo Grounds, we made our way back to the fuel stop just out of Mareeba on the other side of the Barron River, with its headwaters below Mount Hapani. The 165-kilometre long river, with a catchment area of approximately 2,138 square kilometres, is formed by runoff from the Mount Hapani National Park, crosses the Atherton tablelands before turning east after Mareeba towards Kuranda and the Barron River Falls, and eventually reaches the Cairns floodplains before it empties into the Coral Sea just north of Cairns. What an incredible day it has been. Having left the savannah country behind, we were faced with the rainforest and green pastures of the tablelands. From one dry region to a wet, lush region, such a contrast between the two regions. That afternoon we relaxed beside Gidget and made plans for the following day. After a very restful night, we made an early start, making our way out onto Wheelbarrow Way. We were looking forward to our journey today, as it clearly connects the past with the present, showcasing thriving rich farmlands and cattle stations dotted across the wooded savannah country, historic townships and landscapes rich with history. Late in the 1800s, when work was scarce and transportation was limited, miners often used to travel about the region using a wheelbarrow to carry all of their possessions. In 2004, as a tribute to these early pioneers and to honour their amazing trailblazing feats, the road between Mareeba and Chillagoe was renamed the Wheelbarrow Way. The original road to Chillagoe began at Herberton, and locals claimed that a T-model Ford was used to blaze a short route close to the railway track between Dimbulah and Petford in 1949. Today, the Wheelbarrow Way traverses the same country and follows a similar path close to the railway line, which was originally privately owned but has since been incorporated into the state rail system. The line was originally used to ship material from the Chillagoe smelter to Cairns via Mareeba. We passed by the small rural locality of Matilba in the Shire of Mareeba, surrounded by mango plantations, grape vineyards and other horticultural pursuits that we couldn't see from the road. The Great Dividing Range, Australia's most extensive mountain system stretching over 3,500 kilometres along the east coast and forming the continent's principal watershed, forms part of the eastern boundary of the locality. The range, formed during the Carboniferous period over 300 million years ago, emerged through tectonic collisions, faulting, folding and volcanic activity. Erosion over millions of years has shaped the range into its current form. We had been following the Tablelands railway line on and off that had opened in a series of sections between 1887 and 1916. The rail system served by this line was unusual for Queensland in that the majority of the lines that connected to it were built by private companies and later purchased by the Queensland government. The area west of Mareeba was known to be mineralised, and mining pioneer John Moffat received government approval to build a copper mine at Chillagoe, a smelter at Barron Falls, and a railway to connect the mine to the Queensland rail line to be the same gauge and standard as the QR line. On arriving in the town of Dimbulah, we took a drive around the streets to get the layout of the town before making our way back to the park beside the railway station. Rick and I enjoyed exploring this little town, just not stopping in at the restored railway station. Initially, tobacco was the crop of choice. However, since the demise of tobacco in 2005, recent attempts at alternative crops, the list too long to mention, have met with mixed success. Such an interesting, culturally diverse little town, full of coal mining, tobacco growing, railway and agricultural history. Rick and I will leave you here in Dimbulah for this episode. I hope you have enjoyed it. Give us a thumbs up if you have. Join us next time as we continue along Wheelbarrow Way to Chillagoe. Cheers for now. Cherish every moment. Rick and Rosemary. R&R Living Life.